Last week, we left off on the Bodhisattva Peace Training, Change of Heart. We were reading about our true nature is a state of perfection, imbued with wisdom, compassion, and the potential to create limitless benefit. For most of us, this nature is obscured, like a crystal encased in stone. We aren't omniscient and haven't completely developed our compassion and ability to help. However, through spiritual practice, we can fully actualize these qualities. Wisdom includes a range of knowing, from the intellect's ability to learn, change, and mature, to omniscience and the realization of our true nature. We all have access to compassion and loving kindness to different degrees. No one is totally devoid of them. Most people find it easy to love their children, friends, parents, and those who are close to them. Others have a larger vision that includes the desire to end the suffering of all beings. Increasing our love and compassion can be a goal for all of us, regardless of our spiritual tradition. Compassion and wisdom give rise to the power of ceaseless benefit. By applying spiritual methods to change our own mind, we develop an even greater ability to serve others. If the crystal represents our perfect nature, and the stone the negative habits that obscure it, then as we chip away at the stone using spiritual tools, the lucid and beneficial aspects of the crystal will become increasingly apparent. Moments of intuition or even psychic abilities are examples of this. Through spiritual practice, great masters have removed all obscurations and fully manifested their wisdom, compassion, and ability to benefit beings, both temporarily and ultimately. Enlightenment is the full revealing of the crystal and its capacity to refract light and cast rainbows completely and effortlessly. The Buddha left our human realm a long time ago, but we still receive blessings when we think or pray to him. The same way Jesus lived centuries ago, but his example of love and compassion helps people directly here and now. Mahatma Gandhi's life was taken from him, but his loving kindness and philosophy of nonviolence continue to influence others to this day. The lives of many contemporary bodhisattvas exemplify the path of selfless service as well. A great lama in the Trongyi family, Tulku went into retreat at the young age of 11 or 12 and remained there until he was 25. He then spent 1 year at a monastery and eventually returned to retreat, emerging only occasionally to beg for food. Due to his extraordinary meditative accomplishment, his qualities became apparent, and people came from long distances to receive his blessings. For 1 week every 3 years, he would let people sit with him. They could see him just for a moment, and only if they had agreed to give up all forms of killing, including smoking, hunting, and fishing. Everyone came to regard the region surrounding his retreat site as a peaceful sanctuary for all beings, especially animals. As word of his kindness and realization spread, people began making pilgrimage to his hillside and leaving offerings, which he himself scarcely touched. He would take only a little grain from a huge sack and leave the rest for the community of poor who had congregated in the area, living off the offerings intended for him. He never accepted money. He didn't even own a change of clothes. In 1959, when the Chinese were imprisoning lamas and searching for members of the Tibetan resistance, they found Tulku in retreat. They bound his hands, tied him behind a horse and rider, and led him to jail. He was quite old at the time and very thin and unable to keep up. Whenever he fell, he was dragged. In a village along the way, the people immediately recognized him. Though it was dangerous to show devotion for a lama, the villagers nonetheless ran to him, crying and bitterly criticizing the Chinese. When they tried to attend to his wounds, he said, "Please don't worry about me. Help the soldier who's holding the other end of this rope, because he must have blisters on his hands from dragging me." The jails were staffed by the most frightening of the Chinese and their Tibetan allies. These Tibetan collaborators, who were angry with their own people, tortured the lamas. On the first day of Tulku Arik's imprisonment, the guards were vicious, but he met their ferocity with such a gentleness that by the next day, they began to treat him and the other prisoners more kindly. Just being near him, his captors were transformed. Among the prisoners were political detainees who had many grievances against the Chinese, as well as hardened criminals whose anger seethed at inmate and guard alike. By his example, Tulku Arik, even though he was old and feeble, saved them from the torture of their own poisonous emotions, and conditions gradually improved on both sides of the bars. Eventually, a prison once known for its brutality became an exception to the rule. Over time, Tulku Arik was moved from prison to prison, and wherever he went, compassion followed. The Chinese noticed this and ultimately released him, saying, "This kind of Lama is okay." Such is the influence of a person with a good heart and pure motivation.